I have like the disassembled bits of the smart light kit behind me because I was taking pictures. I didn't think I'd ever be paid to take pictures of a light bulb. But
Your camera is not focused at all, Corbin. What did you do?
oh wow, I didn't touch it. Wait, come on, Logitech.
Are you actually just blurred in real life?
No, no, I see it. There we go. Okay, we're
Okay.
good now.
Hey, Diablo.
Okay,
I was just standing still. I don't know what it was doing.
So we're all set then?
Yes, we can go back to talking about emojis. I know that's your favorite topic.
Well, yeah, obviously. Hey, welcome to the Android Police Podcast. I'm Ryan Whitwam.
I'm Cody Toombs.
And I'm Corbin Davenport.
And this week we are not talking about emojis. That is not going to happen. Unless we just sort of get there organically because we're talking about something else. But to start off, let's talk about Sony, which should have like one of the sad frowny face emojis or like a crying emoji, because they're not making money. Also, whoever just highlighted everything on the spreadsheet, could you not do that?
That's Cody.
No, I do. I do it so that I can then paste everything into the room.
Okay, well, don't do it.
Don't tell me what to do.
Okay, that's it. This podcast is over. It's over.
Shortest podcast.
Okay, no. So Sony, they released their third quarter financials because their fiscal year starts in April, I believe. So
yes.
Their quarterly results are in, and they're bad for mobile. They're fine for everything else. Sony makes money. They make lots of money on music and games. They do not make money on phones. In fact, they're losing more of it. So overall, in that quarter, Sony made about $3 billion, which is, it's pretty good. The mobile communications division lost 141 million, which
Oof.
isn't good. That's more than it lost in the last quarter, and it is a substantial drop from the third quarter last year when it actually made a little bit of money. So yeah, it's not looking great for Sony. I think Sony is just kind of one of those companies that makes phones because it wants to be a company that makes phones, kind of like LG. LG makes a lot of money on washers and dryers and TVs, and then they're like, hey, let's make phones and lose money on it every year. But I don't know. I mean, Sony goes through phases where it doesn't make a lot of money, like as a company. So I don't know if it will always be able to justify just throwing money away on phones like it has been. And I don't see things getting better because they actually moved many fewer units. I think we have it here somewhere. So they only sold 1.8 million devices in the third quarter, and and last year they sold 4 million. So like they're selling so many fewer phones. It's not just that like their costs have gone up or anything. It's like people are just not buying nearly as many Sony phones. So you guys clearly care about this deeply.
I know. Well, if they just made another Xperia Play, they'd stop losing money. Like I don't see what the difficult part of this is.
I'm pretty sure that one, that's not true. Two, they never made the first Xperia Play because that was Sony Ericsson. And three, game controllers on Android are bad.
I'd still buy one. I really wanted one when the original came out, but I didn't have money at that time.
Yeah, you were
and
like.
And then when I I might have been. You're right. Wait, when did it come out? That was like.
It was like 2010, 2011.
2011. Okay, let's see. Xperia Play.
I don't actually want to know how old you were. That's just gonna be.
So if I was gonna make a guess, I think Sony just wants to be in smartphones because in the offhand chance that all of a sudden somebody else screws up, Sony wants to be there to swoop in. Like they don't want to give up the opportunity that it could become a massive business. which, to be fair, the way that they're operating will probably never happen for them, even if everybody else screws up. But it, I think that's pretty much the whole strategy here.
I think like their whole strategy is like, hey, people in Japan still buy our phones, so let's just keep making them because
that could be it too.
Gonna buy them.
Well, I don't.
Japan is a weird phone market though, because they also have like the wacky Android flip phones, and
They do.
And people don't really buy a lot of iPhones there. It's a very strange setup, but yeah, I mean, I feel like Sony is going to be in trouble as we move into 5G. I don't think they have the kind of partnerships that you need to make that work, and I think their sales are going to get even worse.
Well, isn't Sony one of the few companies that's making 5G infrastructure that isn't Huawei? Or am I?
Well, I mean, I mean like on the consumer side to sell like 5G phones, you're going to need to be in bed with carriers because so many of these devices are going to be carrier specific, and Sony just doesn't do that.
Yeah, I don't remember the last time Sony sold a phone in the US on a carrier.
I know that they were going to sell that phone on Verizon a few years back, and then they canceled it like 3 months later before it came out. I forget what it was. It was like the Z4, maybe.
I know the I think it was the XZ3 Compact was.
Did something just happen to Corbin?
I think we lost Corbin for a moment.
He appears to still be frozen. Corbin, okay, you're moving again. Are you still there?
I'm sorry. Did I cut out?
Yes, I think your router freaked out again.
I know. The mouse stopped churning on its little wheel.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Were you saying something?
Yeah, I was just saying that I think the Xperia, the XZ3 Compact, I think it was certified to run on Verizon, but it wasn't actually sold by them. And that's the only carrier related thing I can remember Sony doing in the past couple of years.
Yeah. So yeah, the long and short of it is Sony not making money on phones, probably won't.
Yeah.
But they're stubborn.
Also for the record, Ryan, I was 13 when the Xperia came out.
Okay. All right. We're gonna move on from that very discomforting fact, and we're gonna talk about Twitch, which is the thing that we're streaming on right now. And if you're not watching us on Twitch, you should do that because you get like the full experience. You know, like the podcast that goes out on the feed is sanitized. You know, we trim out all of the mistakes and the bad stuff, like when Corbin disappears because his router is bad, apparently. You don't get that when you download the podcast after the fact, but when you watch live, you get all the ugliness. So, you know, if you're already watching the show, you should go to twitch.tv/Android Police and subscribe. If you are an Amazon Prime member, you can connect your Twitch to your Amazon account and you get a free subscription each month. It costs you nothing, but we still get the money from Amazon. Amazon will give us money because you say so. You get to tell Amazon what to do. And really, isn't that worth your time? We have instructions for linking your accounts on our channel page, so you can get that done, and then just click the little drop down and subscribe, and then that will help us keep doing the show. And people are subscribing like right now while I'm talking. Killbot 556 just subscribed for 3 months in a row.
Wow.
Also,
thank you, Killbot.
If you subscribe while we're on the air, a notch, a Pixel 3 XL notch, will appear on the screen with your name on it, because we know how much everybody loves the notch. So so twitch.tv/Android Police. Also, Twitch is where we interact with people during the show. That's the only chat that we watch. So if you want to yell at us or ask us questions, you should go to that. Okay, so let's get back to the show and talk about something that is almost as depressing as Corbin being 13 when Spirit Play came out. The Moto G7 series is a thing. It exists, sort of. You can't buy them yet, most places. I think Mexico and Brazil, some of these are out, but the rest of us will have to wait for another month or two. So I have used these phones, and they're fine. They're okay. I mean,
such a resounding comment.
it's Moto wants way too much money for these phones. The G7, I think, is the only one worth buying, and it's $300.
Yeah, that is. I forget. The G6 wasn't that was $200,
I
right?
think that was $230.
Okay.
Like
Yeah,
$229.
that's a fairly big price jump for
it is. So, I mean, you could argue that it's justified on the basis of more expensive parts. So this runs on a Snapdragon 632, which is a better chip than I think it was a 450 in last year's G phone. But I mean, at 300, you're pushing into the no man's land between budget phones that people will actually like spend money on. They'll just like buy up front just to have a budget unlocked phone. And like then you're sort of encroaching on phones like OnePlus that they cost a little bit more, but they are legitimately flagship level devices. But here's the thing. So Motorola, they announced like 3 phones that you'll be able to get pretty much everywhere, and then there's another phone that is only in certain markets. So I've used the G7, the G7 Power, and the G7 Play. So the G7 is the only one with a 1080p screen. The other 2 are 720p, which seems silly to me, especially because they're so big. Like the G7 Power, it's a 6.2-inch screen and it's only 720p. I don't think that's great.
That's brutal.
That's real bad.
So then the G7 has a 3,000 milliamp hour battery, which is like normal, whatever, not impressive. The Power has a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. I feel like that phone would be super interesting if it had a better screen.
Yeah.
But I just can't, like, I would like, when I was looking, I was like, this doesn't look great. Like you can tell at that size that 720p is not quite where, you would like to have the screen look better. You can tell that it's just not as good. And then like the Play is a very boring device. It's all plastic. Like the back is plastic. It feels cheap. And it's still $200, which I think is too expensive for what that is. It still has the same SoC, the Snapdragon 632, which I guess, that's not like, it's not bad from a spec perspective, but it's still a 720p screen and, cheap feeling.
I like how the G7 Play, it looks like, can only fit one notification icon.
Yes, so they all have real big. So they all have notches. They're real big on the G7 Power and the G7 Play. They're like iPhone notches. And it strikes me as just so strange. Like the Play, they put a camera and a flash on the front, but there's just a ton of bezel around them. I don't know why they did this. It makes no sense to me. So yeah, you get one notification icon, and then like the dot to indicate that there are more, which is not an ideal setup. At least the regular G7, it has a teardrop notch, so it's small. It doesn't take as much space. But these are all LCDs, so they have a big chin at the bottom to fit the display drivers. Motorola did at least move the fingerprint sensor to the back. It's under the Motorola logo, which is what I think we kind of all wish they would have done like 5 years ago when they started putting the dimple on the back of phones. But I mean, they're doing it now. So yeah, these phones are going to be out in a couple of months, and we'll have a full review of at least the G7 when it's available. But my initial impression is not great. I feel like they're just going to be too expensive, and Motorola's they're forgetting why people liked the G series phones in the first place.
So just to look at these phones, I feel bad bringing up this topic in this context, but do these phones really need to go bezel free? Do they need to go notches? I know that's the trend and it's now the standard this year, but it seems weird.
They totally do not. They're chasing this weird fake premium aesthetic, and I just don't get it. Like phones that have notches that like legitimately are trying to shave off all of their bezel, like I get it. These phones don't, because they still have so much bezel. Like the notch is totally artificial.
I keep going back to the G7 Play, which not only has the biggest notch and a massive chin, but also the sides
Yeah,
have like a lot of bezel on them.
It's got giant bezels. It is it's silly. I mean, these phones. So like the G7 and the G7 Power are glass. Like the back is glass. None of them have wireless charging or NFC actually, but they're glass for reasons because like expensive phones are glass. So obviously these should be glass too. And it's just silly. So the G7 also is the only one that is Gorilla Glass. The G7 Power is some other glass. They didn't really want to elaborate on it, but I'm kind of concerned about that.
Yeah, these don't make sense. They're not like terribly priced, but they're a little more expensive than each particular model should be. They're all taking weird, like they're all cutting some corner that doesn't really need to be cut. Yeah, I don't get the point of these.
Yeah, if and there's so many. Like if they just sell the G7 for like $50 less, and you might have some success. But at this point, I think whatever Nokia does this coming year is probably going to clobber Motorola as far as the value proposition. Even like compared to the 6.1 that came out last year, I think is better in a lot of ways compared to the G7, and it's cheaper. I think, right? It's like 280 or something, 270.
I think it's around $300. But the Nokia, the Nokia 6.1, it has NFC, it has a good screen, it doesn't have awkwardly added notches. I mean, there's a lot more going for it, even if the price difference is minimal.
The 6.1 is only 230 now.
Oh wow! Yikes!
That is a good deal.
So really at this point, the only major leg up that Motorola's phones have over Nokia's are that Motorola's phones work on Verizon and Sprint. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there will be some carrier versions of these phones apparently, but I don't think that's gonna really save them. Motorola doesn't like to talk about how well things sell, but I've always had the impression that the G series has been carrying the company lately, just based on how little they seem to care about the Z phones. I mean, they didn't even release a proper Moto Z flagship last year. They just did the Z3 on Verizon, which still doesn't have its 5G mod, by the way. They didn't want to talk about that either.
It does also strike me that while they decided to go with a notch, they decided to buck one other trend, and they actually have headphone jacks on all three models.
Yeah, they do. But for cheap phones, that's still more common.
Yeah, but still, it stands out.
Yeah,
and I'm wondering if maybe that's what they think will help sell them.
Yeah, I don't know. But okay, so that was the G7. We'll have a real review later. But if you want to go and just look at pictures of them and see the specs and everything, we've got the article on the site. Chrome is going to break the internet, right? That was the takeaway, I think, from this story. Chrome is breaking the internet.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So I didn't actually get to write this, so I only have a basic understanding of this, but Google is experimenting with a Chrome feature called Never Slow Mode. And so browsers have done a couple different things to try to make websites like CNET not terrible.
Good luck.
And exactly. In the case of Opera and those kinds of browsers, it's just ad blocking. That's their thing. Chrome, being owned by Google, is obviously not a super big fan of ad blocking. So Google is trying something where this isn't functional yet, I don't think.
It's not actually
okay.
available. They prototype. Do not commit. It says right in the
I could have sworn I saw ZNet have screenshots, but maybe I was imagining something. But no, so the idea here is that sites get a budget of how much data they can load per page. So like per image, like for all images, oh, I'm sorry, for each image of the page on the page, the max is 1 meg. You can't have an image more than 1 meg. And the total image budget is actually 2 megabytes. So all the pictures
what
on your
happens if it's bigger? Does it just stop loading?
It won't load it.
Oh, it doesn't load it at all.
Well, yeah, once you go past that limit, like you're done. It's not loading anything else. So that's why this is breaking a ton of sites, because obviously a lot of sites have images that add up to more than 2 megs.
I'm not opposed to this in theory. I feel like the image part is less. They could maybe be a little bit less strict on that, but like limiting the scripts on pages, I would be in favor of, because there are a lot of websites I just won't open on my phone because I know that they are complete disasters.
Yeah, and I was just looking at what those budgets are, and the script, per script, it's 50K, but the total script budget is 0.5 meg, which is pretty sizable.
That does seem too much.
That's allowing a hell of a lot to get in.
Yeah, and there's other factors too, like a lot of sites compress their scripts and that kind of thing to make it smaller to load. But yeah, and another thing is the total connection limit is 10. So I guess the site can't be hopping back and forth to try to get responses. I'm really curious where this is going to be used. Like maybe this is just the evolution of Chrome's data saver mode on Android, and maybe this will just never appear on the desktop because we've all got big boy processors that can load CNET sometimes.
or even Newsweek on a good day.
Yeah. But yeah, this I do kind of think that browsers are leaning in this direction where they're trying desperately to do something, because browsers keep getting faster and faster, but then sites keep adding more and more scripting.
Yeah, I just wish that websites, web developers, and the people who were in charge of the web developers would just sort of take a different approach and realize, like, just because you can make your page do something doesn't mean that it has to. It doesn't mean you have to put 3 different auto playing videos on the page. Or ads that like jump out at me when I'm scrolling. I just would prefer that you didn't do many of these things, and just make the internet easier to use, please.
So that's I'm with you on that. You're naming the things that are like that
are on CNET.
Well, yeah, you're naming the things that they do that are wrong, inherently wrong. One of the catches with software development, though, and this is like going back to one of those core tenets, is you will, like, over time, software just gets more complicated. You'll always add a little bit more. You'll always do more with it. And things that used to be possible, or things that used to not be possible, are eventually made possible. Just because people figure one day, like, hey, you know what? I want to handle text input in some clever way that's a little better than what anyone was doing before. And I figured out a way to do this with JavaScript. So people write that, and it ends up becoming, semi-standard eventually. So that kind of thing, that's kind of why a lot of this stuff grew so big. Like, anyone who remembers jQuery when it was first created, it was pretty tiny. jQuery is now this lumbering mass that's like huge. And even though it gets minified and it's been like broken up into separate libraries, honestly, it's still way bigger than it was when it was first created. And it's because of this, they just added a lot of functionality and features and improved the features with more code. So it got bigger, it takes more processing, but it's for good reasons that happened.
Yeah.
So what if we just tear down the whole internet and start over? Do you think, would that be better? Maybe. Can we make it not so
I mean, I voted for that, but everyone else said no.
I feel like if that happened now, we would just get Facebook internet. That'd be
I was
the
just
only
going to
side.
say that.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that'd be it.
If any part of the internet survives, it'll be Facebook. Unfortunately, it's the cockroach of the internet.
The internet 2.0 would be like what Facebook was trying to do in Africa a couple of years ago, where they were setting up free internet service, but you could only use Facebook. That was fun.
Somehow
Okay.
I think MySpace might still be around at that point too. It'll turn into something entirely new again.
Yeah, it'll be a Reddit replacement or a shopping website or both.
Oh, Rakuten will buy it.
Yeah. Oh goodness.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about T-Mobile and how they're definitely going to buy Sprint and what that is going to do to your mobile bill. So John Ledger says that for 3 years, they're definitely not going to hike your rates. After that, though, well, get ready for a higher bill because, of course, that's going to happen. So yeah, it seems like an unusually honest statement from T-Mobile as they try to get their merger approved.
How'd they pick 3 years? Why is that the magic number?
Who knows? They thought that would sound good to regulators, I guess. There are a lot of times when companies do mergers like this, they'll agree to certain practices that they're bound to for a particular amount of time. Like when Comcast bought NBC, they agreed to certain terms that would expire after a few years, and so T-Mobile is just trying to like nudge this over the goal line, even though the current state of the regulatory apparatus in the U.S., I think, makes this merger extraordinarily likely to happen, even if T-Mobile didn't agree to anything like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also possible, just to throw it out there, I don't think that this is why, but it's possible that maybe they've already looked at some numbers about like network build out, or they might have contracts already in place that guarantee certain things either can or can't happen before that 3 years is up. And as a result, maybe they're just like kind of picking 3 years and telling the public that. And in the back, they're just basically saying, you know what, we already couldn't do it. So yeah, we'll just tell the public this because we can. So
yeah,
anything's possible.
And I mean, I wouldn't even be surprised that they might do things in that period of time that you could reasonably call a price hike, but they'll structure it in such a way that they have some sort of legal out. Like even what T-Mobile's been doing lately, everything is getting more expensive. I mean, I'm on a very old grandfather T-Mobile plan that I don't want to ever give up because it's cheap. Every time I look at doing one of their current plans, because it has a few features that my plan doesn't, it's noticeably more expensive. It's like, almost as expensive as AT&T and Verizon, and I don't want to pay that much.
And
yes.
So yeah, wasn't much to say on that. But yeah, there's also a lot of people have gotten really critical about this, basically saying that with 5G rollouts and a lot of the changes that are inevitably coming, T-Mobile might actually be kind of not lying, but sort of dodging the inevitability that prices actually should be going down, and T-Mobile might just conveniently say, well, we promise to keep the same prices, or lower, maybe, kind of, sort of. So, people are questioning if T-Mobile might actually just kind of be making a promise that wouldn't matter anyway.
I know. It's like, I don't know. I get really frustrated with T-Mobile because at least all the other carriers, they don't even try to pretend like they're being competitive. AT&T over here will charge you like $20 for super fast data internationally per day or stuff like that. But T-Mobile still has this persona that they're this vicious smaller company fighting for market share. and they're pulling all. I mean, especially in the past year, they've been pulling all the same tricks that AT&T and Verizon been doing, making new plans that are incredibly complicated and have lots of asterisks. Just I don't know. I'm not sure where I'm going with this. I'm just really frustrated at T-Mobile, and I'm really not looking forward to us being like Canada, where we have 3 choices for a carrier and they're all incredibly expensive.
Well, okay, so what you're saying, totally agree with it. I'll take it the step further and say, we all know T-Mobile, after that merger goes through, if I remember correctly, maybe I'm mistaken, but if they acquire Sprint, they will slightly edge ahead of Verizon, correct, for number of customers? Do either of you know?
I
I have
don't
no idea.
know. I think it would put them in very close competition with AT&T and Verizon.
Okay,
I don't think
I
it would move
swear I
them
read somewhere. It wasn't us, but some site had said that it would put them in the lead. They could have been mistaken, so it doesn't matter though. The fact is, once that merger happens, you and I both know they're going to still claim to be the underdog. They're still going to throw around the uncarrier line. They're still going to keep playing all the same cards, and there will be no difference. It's still going to be a different color. It's still going to be a little bit of like John Laguerre's personality coming out, and that's going to be the only difference. Everything else will be the same as every other carrier.
So according to Wikipedia, Verizon has 153 million subscribers. AT&T also has 153 million subscribers. T-Mobile has 78 million. I'm sorry, 80 million. And Sprint has 53 million. So if you add up T-Mobile and Sprint's base, it's 134. So they would be very close to both.
Yes. Well, I think that's the future that we're all looking at. So hope everybody's, cool with that.
Yay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk
capitalism.
Let's talk about a super weird thing that happened. Essential released something. It's not a new phone though. It's not even really new. It's just
no. It's an email app that died several months ago.
But now it's back.
Yeah.
It's a zombie app.
Yeah. So if for the most people who forgot Cloud Magic existed, Cloud Magic was a company that made an email app. It was originally called Cloud Magic, then it turned into an app called Newton. It was a subscription-based email app. You had to pay $50 a year, and it had native clients for every OS: Windows, Mac, Android, iOS. And it shut down in August, presumably because there's not a whole lot of people left who are willing to pay for email. And then Essential bought them a couple months later in December. And I think most people kind of assumed they were buying Newton for their technology or for their employees. But it actually turns out that Essential is just bringing Newton back online pretty much exactly as it was before it shut down. There are a couple new features. It integrates with some productivity apps like OmniFocus and To-Do app. And the mail functionality has a couple of tiny tweaks, but it's pretty much just they flip the switches back on and it's back to normal. And it's still $50 a year. So Essential isn't footing the bill, which a lot of times happens when companies buy services, is they'll drop the price or even make it free while they work on something else. But nope, it's back to normal.
So back when this was Cloud Magic, I wrote like a hands-on with it when it was pretty new. That was one of the very first things I ever wrote for Android Police. So I'm happy that it still exists, but I'm also kind of perplexed that that Essential would even bother to do this. I know that it's like the app had, fans. There were people who wanted to use it. So I don't know, maybe Essential figured that it was worth the infrastructure costs to, to have this out there and let people pay them $50 for it. But I just don't know if this is really gonna stick. I mean, and I would be super uncomfortable trying to move my whole life into an app that was being run by Essential, a company that I think is probably more than likely than not going to go away eventually.
Yeah, it doesn't instill confidence when a product goes down and then gets bought by a failing company and then goes back up again with the same exact business model. That doesn't seem like it'll last long.
Yeah.
So are we really sure that I know that this is going to sound dumb, but are we really sure that they bought Cloud Magic for Cloud Magic?
We don't.
Because maybe they were going after somebody that worked there. Maybe there was some sort of intellectual property there. And at this point, they were like, you know what? Since we have Cloud Magic, let's just turn the lights back on for the hell of it. Like we can kind of run in ghost mode on this thing and just let it make a few bucks for us on the side while
do we know anything about what they paid for the company? I guess maybe if they got it cheap, that could be like an AccuHire situation, but
I can't imagine it would have cost them a lot.
I mean, but like for a company like Essential that is laying people off left and right, and it's been 18 months since they released a phone, and there are, as far as we're aware, no pending releases. It seems like a strange choice to even bother buying a company like this, because what are you really going to do with the technology behind this email app? That's not going to make or break a phone. Like, you need to produce a phone that people will buy. That's what you need to do.
Yeah. So first, it doesn't look like the amount they paid is public knowledge. I was checking a couple of sites. None of them are reporting a number. So we don't know how much. Maybe Essential just promised them a couple phones and they came aboard. Stable jobs for the next 6 months. But no, Cody and I theorized on the Q&A show that if the rumor holds true that Essential wants to make a tiny secondary phone that is more, it's like the Palm phone where it's less. Yeah, exactly. If they made their own Palm phone, then like I could kind of see an email app that like prioritizes certain things might fit into that. But we don't even know if they're still doing that. So
you know what, they might also have just thought like, hey, people are unhappy about inbox dying, let's just throw this out there and see if maybe people will pay money for it now.
Yeah, it's not blinding white. It's got that going for it.
Oh yeah, yes, yeah. The new Gmail is upsetting people too. Maybe Newton Mail is what we're all going to be using in another year.
Yeah, there you go. Everyone in our comments.
Do they have a dark mode? Is there a dark mode in Newton Mail?
I have no idea. I haven't used it since it was Cloud Magic.
Either.
I've never actually used this.
I don't see a dark mode in these screens. I feel like that's a mistake.
Actually, to be honest, I don't think I've ever heard of this. The name never came up for me before, as far as I can recall. This was just one of those services that didn't exist for me.
Yeah, I'd never heard of Newton when it shut down, but then when it cut to the part where it said it was owned by Cloud Magic, I was like, oh wow, that's a throwback. I remember that, using that in 2012 or something. I don't know, it was okay, we've established this. I was 14. Yeah. I don't know. This entire podcast is just me making Ryan feel really old. Oh goodness.
Yeah. I am really old. Okay. So before we move on, I'm just going to remind everybody just real quickly, if you're listening and you have an Amazon Prime subscription, you should go to twitch.tv/AndroidPolice and subscribe to the podcast, because that gives us money and helps us keep doing the show. Even if you don't have Amazon Prime, you can go there and you can pay money to subscribe to the show. When you do that, not only do you get to see your name in a notch, but you also get a Ryan emoji for use in the chat room, which is way more fun than it sounds like. Promise. Okay. So are we going to talk about the charger, or that was Ryan's thing?
Yeah, I can just briefly mention if anyone is looking for a tiny USB Type-C charger, we reviewed one called the Anchor PowerPort Atom PD1. That is a very long name for a charger.
Yeah.
And it's small, it charges things quick, and it's somewhat reasonably priced. So if you we just put the link in the Twitch chat, and the link will also be in the
yeah, it
podcast.
got our most wanted award, so it is
It did.
strongly recommended. Ryan was
It's a good charger.
very happy with its performance and form factor. So yeah, that's the thing. And then so we also posted a review of a Marshall speaker, Marshall Assistant speaker, which is very pretty. It looks really cool. If you like the way Marshall amps look, it looks exactly like that. But it's an assistant speaker. It's big. It's the size of the Home Max, and it is the same price as the Home Max, but it does not sound as good, unfortunately. I mean, I think like the physical design, it has knobs on the top, like for volume, treble, and bass. That's super cool. And it looks nice. And it does have RCA input. Like if those are like top of mind for you, then maybe you would buy this over the Home Max. But the Home Max the Home Max has 2 subwoofers, and this one only has 1. And Google also has like the fancy algorithmic bass control thing for the Home Max. So yeah, that speaker sounds better than the Marshall one. But the Marshall speaker is there. You can buy it if you want. There's also there's an Alexa version of this same piece of hardware that you can get for $50 less. So if you're like, an Alexa house, or you don't have a strong preference between the two, then I think that speaker that's easier to justify. So we're talking about, but in case you don't know how much the Home X costs, I should say this is a $400 speaker. So it is a high-end assistant speaker. If you don't have a Home Max and you heard this, you probably think it sounds great, because it does. Like objectively, it's a very good speaker. But it is not Home Max good. The Home Max is the best smart speaker that I've heard so far.
I just want to point out, thank you, Stormy Ways 13, for subscribing on Twitch. You're awesome.
Yes, everybody who subscribes is awesome.
Everyone who subscribes,
especially people who subscribe during the show, because then we get to call them out and tell them how nice and handsome and smart they are.
Yes, and even more awesome are people that subscribe multiple times. Repeatedly, and come back every month to subscribe more. We like that.
Oh, yes. Yeah, just FYI, your subscriptions do need to be renewed every 30 days. So if you subscribed in the past, you just got to stop by the page and renew that. Otherwise, we don't get your Bezos bucks.
We got to get your Bezos bucks.
Our shilling game is on point.
Yeah,
it is.
Okay,
so I do like how the Marshall speaker looks. It looks very nice.
Yeah, I mean, everybody should just go and look at the review and look at the pretty pictures.
Just look at the pictures.
Like the knobs on this thing, like the knobs on the top, are so good. Oh, I love the knobs. They have LED indicators like around them, and so like the knobs just spin like continuously all the way around. So you can change the settings like from your phone or what have you. And so like the knob on the top of the speaker isn't like out of sync with the actual setting of the speaker. Like it just changes the number of illuminated dots, and you can go and like change the knobs manually yourself. It's super.
That's really smart.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought about that.
Yeah. So like the only thing about this, like the speaker's design, that I'm not crazy about is the back. I have a picture of the back. It's very much like they were like, okay, this is the back. It doesn't have to look nice. We'll just screw this panel on with all the warning labels. So yeah, put it against the wall.
Yeah, it looks like every amp I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Looks like a piece of audio equipment.
Yeah.
Now is that a aux in on the top?
Yeah. It has a
port.
Yeah, in addition to RCA. Yeah, I mean it's got ports. So like that's cool. Yeah. So okay, do we have anything else that we wanna talk about? Any
well, we could talk about the emoji thing, but I'm still kind of on board with Skip.
I don't really know that we have anything to say. There are new emojis, everybody. I don't know if you heard. There are going to be new emojis. So now there are like 15,000 instead of 14,000 emojis.
There are.
We could always talk about the NYPD thing.
NYPD thing.
That was
fun.
The DUI checkpoint thing.
Oh, yeah. I guess we could. Oh, fiber. We could talk
Oh
about
yeah.
fiber. They
Oh,
Google just announced today that like they're not expanding fiber to a new place. They are taking it back. No more fiber for Louisville. So
did your Google Home go off?
I don't know. Did it?
I think I heard it. Google Home.
If it
It
did,
wasn't
well,
mine.
it would have been the Marshall speaker that we were just talking about. That's right there. But yeah, so Google is they're taking fiber out of Louisville. So anybody there who is subscribed, they only have it through April 15th. And then it's over. It's gone. But Google's not going to charge you for the next 2 months. So enjoy your free fiber for the next 2 months, I guess.
Enjoy your 1 gigabit internet while it lasts.
Yeah. So according to Google, when they launched fiber in that market in 2017, they started doing a new installation process to lay the lines in sort of like these shallow trenches instead of like burying the wires like really deep. And that made it faster and easier to deploy, but it also has caused ongoing service issues. And apparently it is so severe that if Google wanted to actually fix the network and make it work the way it's supposed to, they would have to just rip it all out and start over. And that is apparently too expensive. So they're just quitting. They're just done. They're leaving. So yeah, soon residents of Louisville will be at the mercy of whichever ISPs are around there. It is
It's
not very
sad.
encouraging.
No, and Google Fiber has kind of been on death watch, I feel like, for the past year or so.
Yeah.
Because I think their last expansion was only TV, I think. Or no, only internet. They didn't have a TV package. So they're kind of slowing it down a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Google wishes everybody who has fiber would just cancel it so that they could close it down without pissing off everybody. But man,
so like Hangouts.
Yeah, basically.
Well, Google has a lot of stuff dying very, very soon. So it seems like somebody from up on high probably said, "Hey, if you can, if it's not something that's really successful, you need to start shutting it down." And this looks like it could maybe just be one more aspect of that.
Well, the new trend is shutting things down because of a thing that could be fixed. So like this is shut down because they didn't bury the cords deep enough. They could fix it, but they don't want to. Google Plus was shut down because there was an API bug. They could fix it.
Well, I mean, look, Google doesn't have a lot of money. It's a very poor company. It's difficult for them to find money in the budget to do things like this.
Well,
they're spending all of their money on like drones and anti-aging treatments.
And also paying certain people to go away.
Yeah. That's where all the fiber money went.
And that's the most we'll say about that.
Yeah, but so yeah, if you are a fiber customer someplace else, I would be concerned. You might want to maybe just start looking into what the internet options are outside of fiber. Just make yourself aware so that should Google decide to just murder fiber, you'll know where to go.
So Diablo said Google Wi-Fi is on drones.
Yeah. I feel like Google maybe they're just trying to like limp along with fiber until they can do like wireless 5G service. I think that is what Google would like to do because it's delaying the fiber that has been the killer for them.
Yeah. It'd be really funny is if in Louisville they sent out a letter that said, "All right, guys, your fiber internet's getting shut down, but if you want, we're sending over a couple Project Loon balloons over your way. You can still stay subscribed, and your internet will come from one of our mini balloons. They're straight from where they were used last, like 2 years ago."
Yeah, they just took them out of mothball.
they just opened the barn where they're all kept, and they all flew to Louisville. Oh goodness.
Oh yeah, but Google needs to be a little more careful with just tearing things down like this because it's it's going to lead to such a bad taste for every person that was a Google Fiber subscriber in that city.
I mean,
this is not.
I mean, that's a newer market too. I mean, can you imagine if they if they had to shut down, if they just decided to stop doing fiber and they're like, okay, Kansas City, no more fiber. We've had it for like 8 years, but not anymore. I mean, there are people who just come to rely on it. It's for good, cheap, fast internet, and it's going to be tough for them to stop doing it.
Yeah, at the very least, I wish that they had said that maybe they contacted another company or collaborated with the city to have a takeover plan. It's not really good to do just.
I mean, it sounds like the fiber they install is just not useful. Nobody's going to want to do it.
There would have been nothing to take over.
Yeah,
it would have been do you guys want some?
Google's like, hey, we have some shallow ditches if you guys want. They go right up to people's houses.
We have some cables sticking out of the ground you can buy.
Yeah, so Google made mistakes. Mistakes were made, and they just don't want to fix it.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of, not mistakes are made. This wasn't really a mistake. The NYPD thing, I'm still trying to find. I have to search for it really quick because.
Oh, I've got it already.
Okay, I just found it.
They asked Google and by extension Waze to stop showing DUI checkpoints. That's the gist of it.
Yeah. So because
specifically they sent a cease and desist. So this is a
strongly worded letter.
Aggressive.
Yes.
I mean, look, nobody likes DUI checkpoints though, because they're really a big pain in the butt. From what I understand, I live in a state where they are illegal, so I don't have to put up with them. But I hear from people who do have to put up with them, and they're always very unhappy about it.
Yeah, there are a couple of spots in my town where cops love to park and turn their headlights off and just wait for you to go 2 miles over the speed limit.
Well, but I mean, so DUI checkpoints, from what I understand, they set up shop and every car has to stop, and then they try to find a reason to try to find.
The car.
And,
this is where they actually put up blockades. They have you pass one, maybe 2 lines of cars, and you go straight through. They talk to you at your window. If they come up with any excuse whatsoever, they will have you pull off to the side of the road. More cops will come over and they will basically just keep you there for a good. Sometimes it'll be as quick as 10 minutes. Other times, they might keep you there for 45 minutes, and they will administer roadside tests. They will talk to you. Sometimes they will look for excuses to poke around in your car. They will do a lot of stuff depending on the cops. Some of them are really legitimate about this, others not as much. Sometimes they will get super invasive when they have no rights to. There have been complaints across the board from all kinds of different behaviors. So that's where a lot of people have really, really negative opinions about the DUI checkpoints, especially because the trend or the common trait, it's not always, but it's very common. The police don't actually want to be there. So they have a very bad attitude when they go out in the first place. And it reflects on how they interact with people.
Yeah, I got confused. For some reason, I was thinking of just cops waiting for someone to run a red light. But no, they sent a cease and desist letter that said individuals who post who post the locations of DWI checkpoints may be engaging in criminal conduct, since such actions could be intentional attempts. I can't talk today. Attempts to prevent or impair the administration of the DWI laws. So they got in a stink because Google has just, even though they've owned Waze for how many years, they've just now started adding Waze reporting into Google Maps and making it more obvious. So I'm sure there'll be a lot more strongly worded letters from police departments in the next couple months. But this was the first one, and Google kind of just told them to pound sand. They sent their representative said, Safety is a top priority when developing navigation features at Google. We believe that informing drivers about upcoming speed traps allows them to be more careful and make safer decisions. So they didn't really, their angle was just kind of like, well, we're helping people not get speeding tickets. That was their response.
So,
Okay,
yeah, you could look through our comments, which a lot of commenters have been very quick to point out that basically Google is in the legal right to do whatever they want here. There's free speech issues. There's obviously a lot of legal issues that already exist about checkpoints that basically say that they have to be a matter of public record, so on and so forth. And there are a lot of other nuances to this. So obviously we don't want to get into all of that. But in all likelihood, assuming Google doesn't decide to turn around and kind of agree to this for the sake of being nice, in all likelihood, the NYPD probably isn't going to have a leg to stand on here.
Yes, I concur. This is silly. Okay, and with that, I think we're gonna call it. It's been a show, guys.
Mm-hmm.
It was a thing.
It's been an hour. We're good.
Yeah. So okay. Yeah. So that's the show for this week. If you want to subscribe to the show, that would really help us out. You should do that. And if you want to yell at us, you can either do it in the chat room during a show or podcast at androidpolice.com. And we'll see you next time.
Good night, everybody.